Thanks, Paul. Happy New Year to you.
No. We'll just do the Premiership at the turn of the year is just on the halfway mark, just over the halfway mark. So we'll have a quick look. We have the top of the table now. Top of the table, Liverpool, 20 games played, 45 points. Then you have Aston Villa, Manchester City, and Arsenal are also just in the top four. So what are your thoughts on the top four there? And Man City have a game in hand, of course. I think they played in the World Club there was a few weeks ago, or there in November, whenever it was. So
that's right, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Liverpool being top of the table at the turn of the year?
Well, I think Liverpool have been up to Christmas Day, funny enough, Paul. Arsenal were top, and by New Year's Day they were fourth. So that shows how tight everything is at this particular moment in time. Liverpool have been playing very, very well. They've only lost one game, and that was very controversial in the way they lost it against away to Tottenham. They were down to 9 men, and they had a goal wrongly disallowed because of VAR. We won't get into that too much now. But they've been very, very good. They've won 13. They've drawn a lot more games than the rest of them, because I think they've drawn 6. But the nearest them have already drawn 3. But they've already lost 1, and they've 45 points. And I think Villa have done very, very well to be in second place, but they have stumbled a little bit in the last couple of weeks. They only drew at home to Sheffield United. They lost away to Manchester United when they were 2-0 up. They lost 3-2, and they needed a late penalty to beat Burnley. And Burnley, as we know, are one of the favourites for relegation. So I think Aston Villa they're doing very well to be in second place at the moment. And to be fair, look, they played 20 games, they've got 42 points. But I believe it's going to be between Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal for the title. And come March or April, I think that's where it really is going to get heat up. Because I always feel the last, particularly when you 10 more games played, particularly when you play 30 games, that's when the real run-in starts, as you say. And I expect Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal to be in there. I think it's going to be a 3-horse race, Paul. I think Villa, with the squad, and because squad depth is going to be massive, I think it's going to be a bit too much for them. So I think it's going to be between Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal. And I find that Arsenal are slipping a little bit lately, Paul. They've lost up to a couple of weeks ago. They had lost 2 games away to Newcastle and away to Villa. When the last week they've had a disaster. They lost 2 away at home to West Ham, lost 2-0, and then they lost away to Fulham 2-1. So that they have stumbled across a bad patch at the moment. And I suppose to get into more in depth, the lack of a clinical striker for Arsenal is what they're missing at the moment. I know City have had missed Haaland over the last couple of weeks with an injury, but I think he's going to be due back soon enough. So I think that's going to be the difference for this title race, is whether can Liverpool keep going. I think they can. City, as we know, really only kickstart their season when it comes to March. The tradition don't start as well as other teams. As remember last season, Arsenal were flying it. City were just kept in touch. Come March, April, and May, that's when City kicked on. So I think City will try and do that again. Liverpool, as we know in the past, can stay with them. I mean, in the past, Liverpool have got to 97 points, and I lost the title because City got 98. So we know them two teams can keep this sort of a run going. I don't think it's going to be a 90-point season or anything like that, Paul. I think it's going to be similar to what happened last season, with it probably an 89 or 88-point season. I think points are going to be able. I think teams are going to be able to take points each other a lot more often over the last couple of seasons. So I think it's going to be a really tight race. I think Liverpool, City, and Arsenal are going to be there in the top 3.
Yeah, I come in there. No, I disagree with you. I'm going to rule out Arsenal. In my opinion, if Arsenal finish in the top 4, that will be their target. I just don't think they're good enough. I know the recent form is not good, but I don't think they're strong enough. And I think it's between Liverpool and Man City. And unlike last year when Arsenal were 8 or 9 points up in the collapse, Liverpool will not collapse. Now, will they beat City? Yeah. I don't know, but it's a 2-horse race as far as I'm concerned. Aston Villa and Spurs, if you go back to last year, they were going well up to about February, March, and then they had a poor finish to the season. They just couldn't see it out. Because the English League season, even in the old First Division or even in the Premiership, it's a marathon. And I don't think they have the quality to see it out. But I believe Liverpool and Man City, if you go back to Man City, they're going perfect. They have a game in hand. I'm not sure it's against one of the lower teams. To win that, they're on 43. They're only 2 points behind Liverpool. Man City are sitting pretty. I've been listening to some, we call them professional podcasters, professional sports journalists, saying Man City are going bad. I mean, I totally disagree with you. I'm sorry, disagree with that analysis. Man City are going perfect. This is what they want. They've got a very soft draw in the Champions League. They've qualified for the knockout stages. They never got out of second gear. In my book, they're only in second gear in the league. All they want to do is stay in contact until March. Now, before we move on down the table, no, just a quick word on the African Cup of Nations. It's starting this month, January. So they'll be gone for players. I don't know the squads, but at least most clubs will have a couple of players gone. Will that have an impact? And what impact will it have on them teams in the top 5 or 6?
Well, it's going to have an impact on Liverpool when you think of one of their main players, Mo Salah. I think he's been a good form all season. He's been had a little bit a bad patch lately, but he's still scoring goals. He still might be as good as he was earlier on the season, but he's still going to be a key player for him. I think with Liverpool, they might be able to cope with that a little bit easier than say for as we talk about Arsenal, because I think Liverpool have a lot of goal scorers around the team now. Jota, Nunes creates has a lot of chances, but he does sometimes finish them. But he's still capable of getting a run together if he can. I think with Liverpool, there's an FA Cup weekend this weekend, so that might help him with the league. That's 1 week out of the way, and I think it all depends on how far Egypt in the African Cup of Nations with most of the goes. If he gets to the final, obviously they'll miss him for a lot more games. I think City should be okay in terms of that Cup of Nations. I think even with Tottenham, I think the Asian Cup is on as well. Son at Tottenham, he might be missing for a few games. So every squad with the African Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup, they're all going to be effective for the next month or so. So I think in a way, if they're dependent on their league position, they probably are happy that the league is taking a break for this weekend. It's an FA Cup weekend, so it might all be disrupting them for 3 weeks. But even so, because a lot of teams, Paul, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of teams, Paul, are having a lot of injuries. I know from my own team, Chelsea, and that's not to excuse where we are, because we should be doing much better than what we are. And we've had like 13 injuries sometimes in the season. Manchester United have had a lot of injuries. Tottenham, I think Tottenham have done very well. Ange Postecoglou, he was manager of Celtic for 2 seasons, won the league. They've had a lot of injuries over the past couple of months, particularly from, I think, funny enough, since they played Chelsea enough, they lost about 3 or 4 players in that game through injury and 1 or 2 through suspension. So I think every club, and I think, Paul, just a broader point, I think a lot of people seem to be saying that. A lot of people say there's far too much football in terms of there's this, many internationals, the Nations League. That was something new that came about 3 or 4 years ago. It's been expanded. There's more teams in it. There's more games. There's this Club World Cup, which I think is a lot of people think it's Mickey Mouse. Man City won it there a couple of weeks ago. That's going to be expanded as well over the next year or two. It's going to be more of a tournament where I think City might play 2 games to win.
Money. It's a professionalism. The more games you want, and if you call them a tournament, and you can make up any name under the sun you like, you get more people watching, and then of course the television companies, the sponsorship, the corporation will hop on board with the coverage. That's what it's all about. As the old saying goes, follow the money.
Follow the money, yeah, that's what it is. But I think the quality of the football, Paul, will suffer, because you're going this season, the last in particular. As not coincidence, but the more games, there's more injuries, and there's more.
Yeah.
Like we know, I know myself. My club's been a lot of players been decimated by it. No, I know. I accept with a very big squad, with too much of a big squad, but a lot of players have been getting a lot of injuries over the last year or so, 2 years, you could say now. And I think it's now coincidence that the quality of the football isn't as good, because a lot of players are playing week in, week out, and a lot of injuries. So I think it's something that'll have to be looked into. But I don't think FIFA, the Premier League, or UEFA have any intention of, as you said yourself, of lower number of games.
No, before we move on, Noel, just 2 words there. Manchester United and Newcastle, who finished in the top 4 last year. Newcastle seem to be struggling because their squad isn't big enough. They were in the Champions League. Their form has fell away now completely. I won't be surprised if their manager gets the boot very soon. And Manchester United are very, very inconsistent. Win and lose and draw, and they get some not good results, but they're very inconsistent. So I'll just a quick word on them too.
Yeah, we spoke there, I think it was the start of the season, that Eddie Howe had a bad patch would the owners be willing to back him? Now, they did. I thought they did well in the Champions League group in terms of a tough group for Newcastle, a team that had been out of the Champions League for over 20 years. To get to the last game where it was 1-1 in the game between themselves and AC Milan. The results that was happening in the other game between PSG was going Newcastle's way. If Newcastle had gotten the goal instead of AC Milan, they would have gone through and knocked PSG out. But as it was, AC Milan got the goal and put Newcastle out of Europe altogether. Didn't get to the Champions League last 16, or didn't even make the Europa League. Now, I think, as I mentioned, they are one team that has also been decimated by injuries, but their squad depth isn't as big. And of course, I suppose the owners of Newcastle are trying to be careful of financial fair play as well, because we've seen that we get on to Everton in a few minutes. They got a 10 points deduction. Yeah, so they have to be more careful in their spending. So it all depends now. Are they willing to give Eddie Howe this bit of breathing space when he's going through a bad patch? We said that if he did have a bad patch, would they sack him and bring in a big name? Was Eddie Howe a sort of man who could bring him to a Champions League, but then not be able to kick Newcastle on to where they want to be? Because I have a feeling, Paul, I might have said it, I don't know if I said it yourself, but if they have the resources and the money, they are capable of going really well in the league and challenging for it by the end of the decade. Now, to be fair, I think they're ahead of where I thought they'll be. I thought it'd be 2 or 3 years before they got into the Champions League. They did it last season. And I think if the money and the resources are being backed into Newcastle, and I think if they have a manager that can do it, they can be challenging for the league and the Champions League because they have the money and the resources. If City can do it, and by the looks of Newcastle United's owners are richer than Manchester City's, they can have the ability of at least challenging for the titles. But getting back to Eddie Howe, he's in a bad patch at the moment. He's only 1 point ahead of Chelsea, and up to a couple of weeks ago, there were 8 or 9 points ahead of us. So they're losing a lot of games. They lost at home to Nottingham Forest. They lost away to Luton. So I think they lost 4, they lost 5. So he is in a bad patch now. And to be fair, Paul, if this keeps going on for another couple of weeks, I won't be surprised. They have a big game now in the FA Cup. They're away to Sunderland. That's a big local derby. So if he loses that,
what will happen, Noel, if he loses that, the supporters will go absolutely ballistic because that's the local derby will say.
Yeah, that's their local derby. That's their. If I know obviously Sunderland the championship. I know Sunderland aren't probably doing as well in the championship as they would like, but I think if Sunderland were to turn them over and if they got more poor results in the league, you could say by the start of February, middle of February, that if this form was to continue, that Eddie Howe could get sacked. I think it'd be harsh enough, Paul, because consider where Newcastle were when Eddie Howe came in. They were second from bottom. I think they had just about. I think their points. I think they were level with the bottom team.
Before we move on to the bottom, just a quick word on Manchester United. They are very, very, very inconsistent.
Very, very inconsistent, Paul. I think Ten Hag, the transfers he's brought in this season haven't worked, particularly on the goalkeeper. I think he's a bag of nerves, Paul, to be quite honest with you. He definitely cost United twice in the Champions League, away to Copenhagen, and away to Galatasaray.
So I think just in the league, before we finish up this section, just in the league, they're on 31 points. Their target will be to try and make the top 4, but I can't see him doing it. They'll do very well to finish 5th, but maybe they don't even want. What are your thoughts just before we move on to the relegation?
Yeah, Paul, they're very, very. They can win one game. As you said, they won 10 games there, and they've only lost 1. But they've
lost 9, but drawn 1, is it?
Lost 9. Sorry, lost drawn 1. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah. So with United, they either win or lose, and it's very, very weird thing for them to happen. The only draw they've had was the 0-0 draw with Liverpool. And they thought, right, they've shown that they can defend deep, they can hold in it, grind out a result. And then, as you said, you must have been very happy there last weekend. They went to Nottingham Forest, hardly kicked the ball, got back into the game 1-1, and then they gave away a sloppy enough goal from their point of view to lose 2-1. So it's very, very weird with Manchester United. They either win or lose at the moment. So and they've had some very poor performances. And to be honest with you, Paul, I think I think the way they're in a false position, Paul, because I think a lot of those victories, they had a 1-0, lucky 1-0 win against Luton, very fortunate to beat Fulham away 1-0. They've had a few results, Paul, but it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And it could even be down where we are with Chelsea myself.
Yeah.
So I think, to be honest with you, Paul, their form has been even worse than seventh. And as you said yourself, I can't see them getting the top four. If they put a run together, they could. But at the moment,